This is chapter 7, Evolution of CBSE syllabus, NCERT CBSE syllabus. So there's a branch of biology known as evolutionary biology. Okay. What is evolutionary biology? It's a study of, in this, they study the history of life forms on Earth. Okay. Here they study the history of life forms on Earth. And what is origin of life? This is, here we study how the Earth, the stars, the galaxies, and the universe itself was formed. So in this lesson, we'll be studying about two things: evolution and origin of life. And life is supposed to have been originated almost 20 billion years ago. Okay, so that's the point of the beginning of the universe. Universe is said to have an age of 20 billion years. And in the very beginning, okay, it all started with a Big Bang. Okay, what's a Big Bang? Big Bang is a huge explosion, a singular huge explosion. And after this explosion, the universe started expanding. And there you can see this diagram shows this is the today. That's today. This is 20 billion years before. So that's a time between. And you can see after the Big Bang, what exactly happened? The universe started expanding. The temperature is decreasing. It's cooling down. At the Big Bang, temperature was very high. Then temperature came down. Gases started appearing. Atoms, electrons, protons are formed. The first atoms were like hydrogen and helium. And these gases started condensing. Galaxies appeared. There you can see appearance of galaxies. And this is today's universe. Okay, even today the universe is expanding. That's an evidence to show that the Big Bang happened in the past. There you can see the Big Bang. Then inflation means expansion of the universe. Protons, electrons, subatomic particles appear. Nuclear fusion, and new atoms are formed. Hydrogen, helium, and the gases condense and start forming galaxies. And that's today's universe with all galaxies. And remember, ever since the Big Bang, universe has been cooling down. Okay, during the formation of the whole universe, even Milky Way, our galaxy, was formed. And this is the Earth, the most primitive Earth. In the beginning, Earth was like a molten liquid of rock. And it's assumed that Milky Way, the galaxy, was formed 4.5 billion years ago. And at this point, you can see it's still hot and it started cooling down. Okay, so you can see it's cooling down. As it cooled down, water vapor came out of the cooling rock. Methane came out, carbon dioxide came out, and ammonia. These are the earlier gases which came out of the Earth crust, which was cooling down from the molten mass, right? And as it cooled down, the ultraviolet rays from the sun broke up water to hydrogen and oxygen. And hydrogen, being very light, escaped from the surface of the Earth to the outer space. It is, extremely light gas. And you can see this oxygen combined with ammonia in the atmosphere, right? So this was the earlier atmosphere of the Earth. The atmosphere contained all these things, but there was no oxygen in the beginning. And when oxygen appeared, oxygen started reacting with ammonia and methane. Okay, ammonia and methane. And when oxygen combined with ammonia and methane, uh, it formed other compounds, like there was water, formation of water, there was formation of carbon dioxide, etc. Even the O3, from the O3, from the O2, O3, ozone was formed. Ozone layer covered the whole surface of the earth, reduced harmful UV rays. And as the cooling continues, the water vapor, the water vapor condensed and started falling as the first rains. Okay, first rains appeared. And these rains filled up water in all the depressions. There you can see. There's a land mass. What you're looking here is the continents. That's a land. These are the depressions. In those depressions, water got filled up. And that's why it looks blue. Okay, these are the oceans. Once water filled up in the craters, that created the first oceans. And the life appeared 500 million years ago. These numbers you have to uh, memorize. Okay, that means after 500 million years, after the formation of the earth, 500 million years after the formation of the earth, the first forms of life appears. So if you count from today backwards, 4 billion years ago, 4 billion years ago, life appeared. Okay, 500 million years after the formation of the earth. And from today, 4 billion years back, the first forms of life appeared. This is like a pictorial depiction of the ancient earth. You can see molten rock still cooling down, meteors slamming on the surface, fumes coming out. Okay, and there you can see from the volcanoes, a lot of gases escaped, and you can see hydrogen, CH4, methane, hydrogen is escaping, nitrogen, and complex organic molecules are appearing. This is the lake or ocean where many organic molecules were formed. Okay, there are many theories which explain origin of life. And the first theory is called panspermia. This is one of the earliest theories. They said that once Earth was suitable for the life to appear, the spores of the life came from outer space in the form of uh, maybe meteors and rocks. And they contain these spores, right? These units of the life are known as spores. When they slammed on the surface of Earth, the initial forms of the life came to the Earth from some other planet. Okay, that's the first theory. It's called panspermia. The second theory, later another theory came up. This is called spontaneous generation. This is a theory of spontaneous generation. For a long time, scientists and common people used to believe in this theory. And according to this theory, life came out of decaying and rotting. Okay, decaying and rotting matter. Right? It came out from the observation in the nature. And they said that things like straw, mud, okay, these are the sources where life appeared. Okay, this is called spontaneous. They said it just appeared spontaneously. No reason for this. Okay, here you can see. And slime, this all these things, these forms of life appeared. But it was soon disproved by a scientist known as Louis Pasteur. He performed a series of experiments. He prepared the broth. Broth is like a liquid created by boiling protein sources, etc., suitable for growth of microorganisms. And in this flask, he boiled the broth and kept it sealed, closed. After boiling, he kept it sealed. Okay, it was kept sealed. So once it is closed, microbes cannot enter inside. And the second one, In the second one, the curved neck was broken and it was kept open. Okay, even this was boiled, right? Two of them. One of them has boiled broth, sealed. Second one, boiled broth, kept open. And in the second one, microorganisms appeared. That means what exactly he did here? He sterilized the flask. Louis Pasteur sterilized the flask with the broth, and there was no appearance of any microbes in the first one. And the second one, it appeared. Okay, so this proves that life cannot be originated spontaneously. So broth is similar to the decaying organic matter. This is an experiment which disproved the spontaneous generation of life from rotting matter like straw and mud. That's the next theory. It was proposed by two scientists, Oparin from Russia and Haldane of England. These two scientists proposed the first form of theory, which said that life can arose only from pre-existing life. Okay, pre-existing life caused the formation of new life forms. This was the idea of Oparin and Haldane, right? And they also said that chemical molecules, such as RNA, proteins, they are not essentially living things, they are chemical molecules. So these are non-living organic molecules. They're non-living organic molecules. These organic molecules, by chemical evolution, they create the first life forms. And those life forms created the existing life forms. So the very origin of life was from non-living organic molecules. And that gave rise to the new life forms, which in turn created rest of the life forms on the earth. This is the theory of Oparin and Haldane, which is actually chemical evolution of life. To prove this idea, another scientist, in 1953, S.L. Miller conducted, an American scientist, conducted an experiment. So what he did, he created the primitive conditions of the earth in a flask. In this flask, he created high temperature and the atmosphere of the primitive earth, such as methane, ammonia, water vapor, and hydrogen. And thunderstorms were created using electrodes. Between electrodes, there was high voltage of electric discharge. Okay, that's electric discharge. And the temperature of 800 degrees Celsius. This was the temperature, and it had all these gases. And down you can see boiling water, which is similar to the hot surface of the earth, because if there was any rainfall, it will immediately turn into water vapor. The water vapor came up from here, it passed through this tube and comes here, right? And it has all these gases plus water vapor. In presence of high source of energy, electric energy, reactions happen between these gases, and as it passed through this condenser, the water vapor turned into water droplets. And this was run for many days. After many days of experiment, in the water which collected here, they found many organic compounds, and these organic compounds can form molecules like amino acids and sugars, nitrogen bases, fats, etc. Right? So this is an experiment in which they prove that The simple inorganic molecules can actually cause the formation of organic compounds, which in turn forms the basic chemicals of living things. And scientists, when studied many meteorites, what are meteorites? These are like pieces of rocks that sometimes enter the atmosphere of the Earth. When they studied the content of meteorite, they found similar compounds in the meteorites. That means there's a possibility that similar reactions might be happening in some other parts of the universe. Okay, you have to memorize this diagram as well as the experiment for the examination. Okay, and that's biogenesis. Biogenesis is a formation of life. According to the Miller's experiment, we have seen that first organic molecules came up in the water. And they assume that, scientists assume that these molecules might have gathered together and formed the first capsule of life. Capsule is like a primitive form of cell. It's called metabolic capsule. Means uh, the first structure which is similar to the cell. And this metabolic capsule, the first, it's not a cell. It's non-cellular forms. Okay. And this happened like 3 million, 3 billion years before, 3 billion years ago. And that time, molecules of RNA, protein, polysaccharides were formed, and these capsules appear. The capsules, as they grew in size by absorbing molecules, it started splitting into two. They are not still cells, okay? They are giant capsules, right? These capsules slowly acquired a self-duplicating molecule. Self-duplicating molecule is called DNA or RNA. We don't know how this molecule appeared or when did they appear. Once they appeared, it created the first simple cells. Okay, first simple cells. And it's assumed that the first cellular form uh, did not originate until 2000 million years ago. Okay, so these are the single cells which appeared in the very beginning. And another point to note is that all these life forms actually arose in the water, right? So in the water, life forms first appeared. This is called theory of special creations. And theory of special creations come from religious text. Okay, in the religious text, literature tells us about theory of special creation. Okay, there are three connotations in this. What's the connotations? This is the underlying meaning beyond the actual meaning. Okay, connotations. The first one, all living organisms or living things, maybe species that we see today are created as such. Okay, so if you look at humans and animals and plants, according to the theory of special creation, they all were created like, if it's human was created directly as human by the God, and trees were created, animals were created. Okay, that's the first connotation. And the second one, the diversity you see in living things was always the same, right? Because religious text says that God has created everything in the beginning. As such, what do we see today? And it was the same in the past. That's the meaning of the first two statements. That means it is a God who created all different living things, and the diversity was existing from the very beginning. The third one, it says that according to this theory, the earth is only 4,000 years old. So these are three underlying meanings of the theory of special creation. But it was challenged in 19th century. Okay. And this scientist you see in the picture is called Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin went on a sea voyage in a ship called HMS Beagle. That's a big drawing of his. Okay, it's called HMS Beagle. Okay, HMS stands for Her Majesty's Ship, referring to the Queen of England. HMS Beagle. He went for an expedition in this ship along with other scientists, and he collected many forms of life from different parts of the world, and he studied the similarities and differences between. Okay, the scientist is called, name of the scientist is Charles Darwin. So that was his route, there you can see. Okay, in 1835, 34, 32, you know, he started from uh, here you can see, right? That was his route. We don't have to learn this, but just to give you an idea, he didn't come to Asia, but many parts of Africa, Australia, South America, he traveled, collecting specimens, right? And what was his observation? Okay. What was Darwin's theory of, um, what was the observation of the Darwin? Okay. And he said that the nature selected the best organism which is fit to survive. And it's known as natural selection. Okay, it is called natural selection. And he said that there has been a gradual evolution of living things. And he also talked about variations in populations. Okay, we'll take this example to understand his idea. This is the earlier ancestor of giraffe. These are ancestors of the giraffe. The ancestors of giraffe was very short, with short legs and short neck. And they're mostly depending on the food which was available on the ground. They were eating the grass. But how do you know about them? We have fossils of the ancient uh, giraffe. And it is assumed that they were eating the food, grass, plants available on the ground. Then there was a change in the climate. Okay, most likely there was a change in climate, and the plants on the ground disappeared. But among this ancient giraffe population, there was variation. What is the variation? Some of the giraffes had long neck and long legs, and long necks. Right? They survived. The reason they could eat from the tall trees. So they got food, but the ones without food, they died out. So that's variation. Variation is differences in the characteristics of organism. And the nature has selected the one with taller neck, long legs. The reason they could eat from the tall trees. And these giraffes passed on their alleles, and these giraffes kept on getting taller and taller, and they become gradual. That's evolution, gradual change in the species, and they turned into a new type of giraffe. Today's giraffe. So we call this giraffe the fittest one to survive. That's a fitness. The fittest one survive. And what's happening here? There's a struggle for existence. Okay, the animals are struggling to exist because it's trying to find the food, but it's not getting the food. It doesn't have the variation to survive in the new changed condition. Right. Second example is not in the reader, just to understand the idea of natural selection. Let's say that's a population of mouse, and most of the mouse is usually brown in color, well adapted to live on the ground. But by mutation, sorry to use the term mutation, we'll use it in the next slide. There is variation among the mouse. Some of them had lighter color, right? And what's a disadvantage of having lighter color? The predators can spot them easily. Okay, the predator spots them very easily. And what's the advantage of having brown color? Well adapted, camouflaged. So these predators easily spot the ones with lighter color, kill them, and their number decreases. So this is called, it's a struggle for existence, right? And what do you call the difference in the color? Variation. And which one will survive? Mostly the ones with brown color, they survive, okay? Because they are well adapted to the surroundings. And this is the natural selection. And the brown ones continue to pass on their genes to the offsprings and become a new population. And this was the idea of natural selection proposed by Charles Darwin. Okay. Then came another scientist. This scientist is called Alfred Wallace. Alfred Wallace was also a naturalist who studied the nature, but he was in another place called Malay Archipelago. Okay. And he also came to the same conclusions. And he contacted Charles Darwin and inspired him to write his first book. And today, the theory of natural selection is known as Wallace-Darwin's theory. Okay, so this is the contribution. Ideas of Wallace was very similar to the ideas proposed by Charles Darwin. Okay, now we're going to discuss the evidences of evolution. What are the evidences of evolution? There are three basic evidences. One is called paleontological. Okay, paleontological evidence, embryological evidence, comparative anatomy, and morphology. So let's discuss each of this evidence. What's paleontology? Paleontology is a study of fossils. Remember, study of fossils is called paleontology. So what is fossil? Fossils are remains of plants and animals which you find in the rocks. What kind of rocks? These rocks are known as sedimentary rocks. Okay, sedimentary rocks are actually formed from the soil and sediments deposited. So in that you find the life forms. And scientists keep finding out such fossils in the crust of the earth, in sedimentary rocks. And they can they can find out the age of the rock as well as the age of the fossils. And by studying the fossils, you come to know about the ancestors of animals which lived today. Okay, look at an example. Today we have almost all the fossils of horse, right? This is today's horse. That's today's horse, modern horse. And these are ancestors. If you look at the ancestors, they were shorter. They had even toes, right? And smaller than today's horse. And using these fossils, today we can show that how a horse got evolved from its ancestor. So that's a physical evidence to prove the phenomenon of evolution. Second example is of whale, evolution of whale. Whale is a mammal that lives in water. Okay, but we have its ancestors fossil, and these fossils show that its ancestors were living on land. How many years before? 49 million years before. That's one of the earliest ancestors. Okay, and today, even today, in the body of the whale, you find the forearms and bones of the forearms and hind legs. Okay, those bones are still present in the body of the whale. So we have all the fossils to prove that whale lived on the land and later migrated to water. That's the next set of evidence. It's called embryological evidence. What is embryology? Embryology is a study of em. Okay. Embryology is a study of embryo. Right? When you study the embryo, you come to know many similarities between. Okay. Many similarities between today's organisms and the previous organisms. Okay. What is embryology? It's a study of embryo. Study of embryo is known as embryology. Embryological evidences are taken from the embryology. Okay. Here you can see comparison of different embryos. That's a man's embryo. Okay. This is the embryo of the man. And in the embryo of the man, you can find presence of gills. Gill slits are present. And the gill slits you will actually find in the fish. The gill slits of the fish you find in the human embryo, which shows that when human embryo develops, it undergoes those phases of development by other organisms. So this is another evidence to show that the evolution actually happened. Okay, so this is vestigial gill slits. But later, a scientist called Carl Ernst proved that though gill slits appear, the human embryo doesn't undergo the
He disapproved of this.
stages of development of the fish. Okay, so in that way, it was disproved. These are homologous organs. What's a homologous organs? Homologous organs are
Same
those.
structure but different function.
Yes, they have the same structure but different functions. Okay, look at these human arm. In human arm, you can find these bonds. This is called humerus, and this is called radius, and this one is called ulna. This is called carpals and metacarpals. Carpals, okay, and metacarpals. Carpals and metacarpals. And those are the bones known as phalanges in the fingers. And if you look at a cat, you find exactly same bones. You see the humerus, you can see the radius and ulna, you can see the carpals, metacarpals, and the phalanges. How about a whale? Even in the whale you find, right? There's a slight difference in the structure, but basically the first bone is a humerus. See, this is the humerus. Look at the colors. And this is the radius. That's the ulna. Here you find carpals and metacarpals, metacarpals and carpals, and those are the phalanges. But look at the bat, exactly same bones are here. But see the function, bat uses this for flying, okay, for flight. Whale uses it to swim. Cat uses it for walking, okay, or catching the prey. But human hand has entirely different function. So what exactly it tells us? These are the organs with the same structure, but they perform, anatomy is same. Anatomy means internal structure is the same, but they have different function in these animals, all right? And homologous organ shows that animals in different conditions evolved in different ways, right? Evolved in different ways. Okay, this is known as, okay, this is known as divergent evolution. Okay, I'll show it on the next page. Another example is heart of vertebrates. Fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, mammals. They are very similar anatomy. No, they all have atria. You can see there is an atria. There's a ventricle. Okay, they have atria. They have ventricle. Right, but the functions are different. Functions of ventricle. But in the case of fish, ventricle pump it to gills. But in amphibian, there are 1, 2, 3 chambers in the heart. Here you find 1, 2, 3 chambers. In reptiles also we find 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 chambers, but it's not completely separated. And birds and mammals, there are 4 chambers. Okay. These are the one on the top are known as the auricle or atria. And the one below are known as
Ventricles.
ventricles. We don't need to learn that. But what does it show? They have similar anatomy, but they have different functions. Function in pumping the blood to certain part of the body. Another example, brain of all these vertebrates, including humans, mammals, If you look at those parts, they're same structure, but functions are different. Okay, the functions of each one differs in each species. It differs. So these are examples for homologous organs. Okay, how about the plants? In plants, you can see this is the leaf, this is the axis. Okay, in the axis, you can find a bud usually appears and it should turn into a branch. If you have not seen, just go when you find any plant, have a look at the plant. And what exactly it shows that it should have been a branch. But in bougainvillea, in India, you can see this plant, bougainvillea. You can see this axis, the branch, the bud, which is supposed to become a branch, has become a thorn. Thorn help is to climb up on the support, plus it protects it from herbivores. But in cucurbita, if you look at cucurbita, this has turned into a tendril. Tendril is modified branch. Branch is modified into tendril. Tendril is used for climbing on a support. Okay, it helps the plant to climb up on a support. So if you study the structure, internal structure, it's the same. The xylem, the phloem, everything is same, but their functions are different. And homologous organs shows us that evolution was divergent. What's the meaning of divergent? Diversified. Different types. They're called divergent. These are like primitive mammal. It's a primitive mammal. This primitive mammal changed into different mammals living today. And they all have basically same structure of the body parts. But according to the conditions they live, they modified their organs. Okay, evolution happened. So homology. What's the meaning of homology? Presence of homologous organ. Homology is based on divergent evolution. Remember that. Homology is based on divergent. Divergent means
They give rise to divergent evolution.
diversify. Organisms diversify according to the habitat in which they lived. Okay, these are called analogous organs. What are analogous organs? Analogous organs are those organs which are similar in their function. Function is the same, but structure is different. Okay, difference in structure. Structure is different, function is the same. Look at the wing of the insect. This is the wing of the insect, wing of the bird, and wing of the bat. Okay, if you compare the wing of the insect with wing of bat or the bird, you will find big difference. In a bird, you can find it has feathers, it has those bones, humerus, radius, and ulna, etc. It's a modified form of forelimb. But if you look at the butterfly's wings or cockroach wings, it's non-living, right? It doesn't have feathers. It is made up of a polysaccharide known as chitin. Okay, and you can try this. You can just tear it off easily. There are no bones inside, but the functions are the same. They both use it for flight. That means two different types of animals, when they lived in the same conditions, their body parts modified for the same function. So they call this one convergent evolution. What is convergent evolution? When different organisms create similar structures for the same function. So these organs have same functions, but they have different structures. These are known as analogous organs. Another example for analogous organs. We know that penguins dive into water to catch the fish. Dolphins swim in the water. So if you look at the dolphin, you find flippers. And penguin is basically a bird. Dolphin is not a bird, it's a mammal. They both live, find food in water. They have to swim in water. Okay, so what do they have? They have adaptation. This is actually being a bird. It's a modified wing. Wing is modified into a flipper for swimming. In the case of mammal, this is a forelimb. It's a forelimb which is modified into a flipper. So both have flippers for the same function. What's the same function? Swimming in water to find the food. So animals with different structure, but they have similar function. Okay, these are known as analogous organs. Another example, the eye of octopus and eye of humans. Both are used for vision, but you'll find a big difference in the structure. In class 11, we studied about the structure of human eye. In human eye, you can see the nerves here are outside the retina, but here the nerves are inside the retina. There are many structural differences between them. And we have something called blind spot here, right? But there's no blind spot there. And their functions are different, but you find difference in the structure. Both help in the vision, but there's a lot of difference in the structure of octopus eye and the human eye. So that's another example for analogous organs. And what's the example in plants? Plants you find this is potato, and the other one is sweet potato. Potato is modified stem. It's a modified stem. You might have seen on the potato you find buds appearing. You might have observed in the kitchen a growing potato. That's a bud. And so it's a modified stem. And sweet potato is modified root. Okay? This way you studied in class 11. It's okay if you don't remember. But what's the function of both? Both of them store starch, means food. Right? So function is similar. But if you look at the structure of the potato and sweet potato, their structures are different. And one is modified root and the other one is modified stem. So these are examples of analogous organs. And there are biochemical similarities too, also to prove this. We don't learn any of them. For example, I'll give an example of hemoglobin. All vertebrates have hemoglobin. Hemoglobin transports oxygen. But if you study the amino acid sequences of hemoglobin in different animals, you will find that's different. There's a difference in the sequence of amino acid. And what's the similarity in function? They all of them transport oxygen. Okay, so you will find the similarities in similar examples in genes too. But we don't learn any examples for this. All these biochemical similarities shows that animals have a common ancestor. All right, all mammals all vertebrates had a common ancestor, and according to the requirement, they diversified and turned into diverse, different kinds of organisms. Okay, so analogous analogy shows convergent evolution. Remember homologous organs are formed because of divergent evolution, right? This is based on convergent evolution. Okay, what's convergent evolution? Like these are three examples: bird's wing, bat. Bat is a mammal. Bird is that's a bird, and these are insects. But they all have to fly. Flight is a common requirement for all of them. And you can see the structure of the insect wing and bird wing and bat wing are different. In a bat, wing is made up of skin. That's a skin and bones. But here it's made up of feather and bones. Isn't it difference in structure? And this is made up of chitin, a non-living material. But they all have modified their body parts for the same function, which is flight. So this is called convergent evolution. Convergent evolution happens when animals evolve for the same function. So they will have organs with different structure, but they all perform the same function. Even domesticated animals, okay, indicates that there is a similarity in many things. For example, dogs. Dogs are domesticated animals, but their ancestor, wild dogs. If you look at these wild dogs, they have many similarities with today's domesticated. All animals and domesticated animals were once upon a time wild animals. Okay, and so artificially we have tamed them and made them live along with us. Even the crops. These crops were once upon a time living in the forest, but we started growing them and we domesticated them too. Okay, that's another example for natural selection, and it's an evidence too. Okay, this is called melanized moth, right? Melanized moth. What's a moth? Moth is something similar to a butterfly, but active only in the evenings or when the light is dim. See, there you can see a moth. Right? This moth is sitting on the bark of the tree. On the bark of the tree, you can see lichens. Lichens are plants, and these plants are made up of two other species, fungus and algae. Fungus plus algae together form the lichen. And they are very sensitive to pollution by sulfur dioxide. Okay, they are easily killed. And that's the color of the lichens on the tree bark. And this moth, which has a lighter color, we'll call them like white-winged moth. This moth has white wing. It sits on the bark of the tree, and you cannot actually see them. It's perfectly camouflaged. Means birds cannot see them, and it's hard to find them. So number of this one was more in the population. And when scientists studied them in 1850s in England, they found out there were many white varieties. But after 1850, by 1900s, industrial revolution started. Maybe in social studies you might have studied this. Industrial revolution. What's industrial revolution? During industrial revolution, steam engines and coal was used. And this coal created a lot of pollution, sulfur dioxide and black
And it started to get accumulated on the barks of the trees.
It produced a lot of carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and black soot, black powder. So what exactly happened to the trees? The trees become black. Look at the tree now. Bark of the tree has turned dark. What exactly happened? Sulfur dioxide killed the lichens. Lichens are killed by the sulfur dioxide. Once sulfur dioxide killed it, the black soot got deposited and the tree turned black. And this is a white-winged moth. That's a white-winged moth. White-winged moth is visible to the birds easily. Birds can see them easily, and they were eaten by the birds. Their number decreased, right? But there was a form which was mutated form. This is called the dark-winged ones. Their number was less in the previous, in 1850. Okay, dark-winged moths suddenly increased. Their number increased, right? And why it increased? It is camouflaged. When it sits on the bark of the tree, it was not visible to the birds. So this is an example for natural selection, right? How natural selection happens here? The variation was there in the very beginning. There was white-winged and dark-winged, but number of white-winged was more. There was no pollution. After pollution started, the number of white-winged decreased, dark ones increased. And remember, the white ones still were there. Okay, it was a mixed population, but there were more white-winged than the more dark-winged than the white-winged. In 1850, this happened in 1920. In 1850, in the previous slide, there were more white-winged and less dark-winged. So both type of moth existed, but one was more than the other one. So this is an example for natural selection. Okay. And there is evolution by human action. Human action is called anthropogenic. When humans involved in natural selection, humans are involved in natural selection. This is called anthropogenic. Remember, anthropogenic means related to humans, done by humans. Look at this example. It's a population of bacteria. Among bacteria, you find variation. Okay, some of these bacteria had mutation, which made them different from the other bacteria. And then humans started using too much of antibiotics. What's an antibiotic? It's a chemical that kills a bacteria. When we used excess antibiotic, the normal bacteria, the yellow one, this is the normal bacteria, they all died. See, all of them died. Which one survived? The mutated one survived. The mutated one could not be killed by the antibiotics, and they multiplied, increased in number, and today we have antibiotic resistant bacteria. What do you call this bacteria? This is called antibiotic resistant bacteria. Okay, this bacteria is not killed by any antibiotic. It's not killed by any antibiotic. And this is called evolution by anthropogenic action, human-induced evolution. It happens in like few years, right? Even the previous is an example for anthropogenic action, because humans created the pollution. Another example for anthropogenic action, we keep using many pesticides. And when you spray pesticides, the bugs, insects, which are not resistant to the pesticide, they die. Okay? Let's say the red ones are resistant. Okay? Red ones are resistant. And they can resist the pesticide. And how resistance comes? By mutation. When you keep spraying the pesticide, the non-resistant one, the normal ones die. And these ones survived. And the after the next generations, what do you find? The red ones become greater. There will be some normal ones, but mostly you find the resistant ones. And this pesticide, let's say it's pesticide A, it's no more useful. It's useless, right? This is another example for anthropogenic action, right? Herbicides, pesticides, antibiotics, pollution, all caused by human activities. Okay, human activities. And these are examples for anthropogenic action, evolution by anthropogenic action. Okay. And all these examples also tell us evolution is not a directed process, means it is called a stochastic process. Okay, means random process. This term you have to learn because it's in the reader. It's called stochastic process. It's based on chance events. What's a chance event here? Spraying a pesticide. In the previous exam, the chance event was pollution. It happened by chance. And which one survives? The one with mutation survives. Okay. So we call natural selection as a stochastic process, means a random process. Okay. Look at these islands. These islands are known as Galapagos Island. It's near South America. All these are like in the circle you find islands. In the square in the screen, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, these are all the islands and a group of islands known as Galapagos Islands. It's a collection of many islands, but they are far away from each other. Darwin went to these islands, and on these islands, he found a bird known as finch. Look at the finch. That's a finch. Okay, finch uh, is a bird which eat the seed. It's a seed-eating bird, right? And this seed-eating bird might have come to those islands from the South America through a storm. It might have been brought in by a storm. That's what scientists assume because you find them in every island. They cannot fly from South America to these islands because they are tiny birds. The original seed-eating bird has a beak of this shape, which is suitable for cracking the seed. So what's the name of the bird? This is known as the finch. All right. So Darwin observed that in each island of Galapagos, he found finches, but they all had different beak shape. Now observe the beak of each of this. See the beak of this one. See the shape of the beak? They are not the same. Okay. And they he found them on different islands. And what do they eat? This is called vegetarian finch. It mostly eat the fruit. And these two, okay, this one and this one, tree finches, they eat mostly insects. Then you find the long beaks, they eat cactus. And this one, seed eaters. These are original seed eaters. They still live there. Okay. And how do you explain that? On each island, some birds landed. And in the group of birds which landed on each island, some had mutation, means difference in the shape of the beak. They survived by eating a specific type of food. Right? So the same type of species, one species, spread out in different habitat, isolated in different habitat, got adapted to the type of food in that habitat, that island. So they develop different beak shapes. This is called adaptive radiation. Okay, adaptive radiation means radiating to different areas. What are the different areas? The islands. In the previous picture I've shown you. One bird, one species, spread to different islands, and on each island, it underwent evolution, right? And this is called adaptive radiation. The adaptive radiation explains this simultaneous evolution happening to the same species on different habitats. And here the reason is difference in the type of food available. That's a first example for adaptive radiation. And this is a second example. Okay, look at these animals. These are called marsupials. What's a marsupial? You know, the best example is kangaroo because we are familiar with kangaroos. If you look at the marsupials, these marsupials have a pouch. Kangaroo has a pouch and they give birth to young ones before the young ones complete their development and put the young ones in the pouch. Inside the pouch, the young ones get the right temperature and the mammary glands are inside it. It gets milk, food. So it stays in this for some time and then become independent. Okay, these are called marsupials. And how about humans? Humans and other mammals. We are placental mammals in which we have complete development of an offspring inside the body. But marsupials give birth to the young ones before they complete their term of development. Then they keep them in a pouch in front of their body. So in Australia, Australia was separated from the mainland millions of years before. And these animals, marsupials, got isolated, and in different parts of the Australia, you find they have evolved in different forms according to the habitat in which they were living. So that's another example for adaptive radiation. Okay, adaptive radiation happened in Australian continent too, and in each part of the Australia, according to the conditions available, they change themselves. Okay, this is a comparison between placental animals which has placenta, and they give birth to fully developed offsprings. Marsupials, they keep them in a pouch outside the body. All these are Australian marsupials. And these are the placental mammals. They all have the same habitat. Okay, habitat is known as niche. Okay, they all are, for example, if they are burrowing, you find similar adaptations. And eating ones. See, look at the snout, long snout. Even this has long snout. Mouse, lemurs for climbing the tree. They fly, gliders. Flying squirrel, flying phalanger. And that's a cat, carnivorous. Tasmanian tiger cat. It's a wolf, but in Australia you find the Tasmanian wolf. Okay, so these are examples. You don't have to memorize them. Remember, Australian marsupials are examples of adaptive radiation. Okay, so this is biological evolution's Darwin's theory. We have been talking about this, and it's an example of bacteria and its preferred food item. Let's say this is a colony of bacteria. There's a colony of bacteria, and this bacteria is living in a nutrient medium. Okay, it lives in a nutrient medium. We'll call the nutrient medium A. Bacteria needs different nutrients, amino acids, vitamins, mineral ions, etc. Okay, that's called nutrient medium A. And this has no issue here. This colony of bacteria, let's call the bacteria itself A, living in the medium A. And this medium has everything available for the bacteria. But one of the bacteria, for example, has variation. It can live on this medium, and even if you change the medium, it still survive. But other bacteria cannot. The one with variation can survive using medium A, nutrient medium A, or a different medium, which is B or C. So in the next step of the experiment, what they did, they transferred this bacteria to another medium. Let's call it medium B. Medium B has a different composition of nutrients. Composition is not the same. Means type of nutrients are different here. So what happened to the normal bacteria? Means the type A bacteria, they died. See, the type A died, but let's call this the type B. The type B survived. Why it survived? Because it had a mutation, and variation, and this helped it to survive on both the mediums. and rest of them died out, and they increased in number and formed a new species, of bacteria. Okay, this experiment can be performed maybe in a week, few days, but that shows evolution, natural selection by evolution. But if it happens in other animals, maybe a bird, or if it happens in humans, or if it happens in fish, it takes millions of years. So that's the reason people find it hard to believe that the natural selection happens or not, because we can't witness the actual steps. So here you find the nature is selecting. So it's called natural selection. The fittest one, which is the fittest one? B is the fittest one. And it's based on the variation. That means there is a there's a genetic base for the evolution, isn't it? Genes should support the evolution and natural selection. And B is better adapted because its variation help it to feed on the second medium. Okay, so this is called adaptive ability. This ability is called adaptive ability. It's inherited. It has a genetic basis, right? So there are two things in natural selection. One is called branching descent. What does that mean? Branching descent means the genetic basis of evolution. Means what? Variation. Variation is inherited. That's branching descent. And natural selection. It's a branching descent. It means inherited characteristics and natural selection are two key concepts of Darwin's theory. Darwin's theory has two main concepts. What are they? Branching descent. What is branching descent? Presence of variation, and which this is inherited to the B. And what is natural selection? The one with fitness. They are adapted to live in the second medium. They survive and become a new species. So this can be called as a new species of bacteria. Okay. Okay. Theory of natural selection can be summarized this way. Population increases exponentially. There's an exponential increase in population of any organism. This was proposed by a scientist called Malthus. Darwin was influenced by population theory of Malthus. So he said that all these organisms, every organism has a potential to reproduce and increase exponentially. What's exponential increase? It goes this way. As the time increases, the number of organism goes exponentially up, keeps increasing. That's exponential increase. But you can see that, for example, mosquitoes and insects lay so many eggs, but only a few insects will come out because most of them die. Some of them will survive. And the second idea of natural selection, there's variation in the organisms. That's the genes. It's a genetic basis. And if there's a change in conditions, the previous example we have seen, the medium was changed. If there's a change in conditions, the one with mutation, the variation survives. Okay, change in conditions causes a struggle for existence. And which one will survive? The fittest one. In the previous example, it was the bacteria B. In the moth example, it was a dark moth. And they survive. Once they survive, they turn into a new species. This is the idea of the summary of theory of natural selection proposed by Darwin. Darwin's theory. Okay, all populations increase exponentially. And in few organisms, you find variations, which is different from the other organisms. And if there is a change in condition, there will be a struggle for existence. Organisms will struggle to survive. And in the struggle for existence, only the fittest one will survive. Which is the fittest one? The one with variation. And once they survive, they are the most adapted. they become a new species. To understand it, I just put up an example here. Okay, this is a population of beetles, for example. This is a population. And if every factor is favorable, okay, if all factors are favorable, if there is enough food, the population of beetles will increase exponentially. Exponentially means 2 become 4, 4 become 8. Okay, it keeps increasing, multiplying, right? And you can see that in this population, there are some of them with a different color. Okay, this is called variation. What is it? It's a variation. The orange ones are the ones with variation. And they can sit on the bark of the tree, for example, and they can camouflage. But the green ones, right, are visible to the birds. So what happens? They specifically eat the green ones. And what do you call this? It's a change in condition. Arrival of this bird in the habitat is a change in condition. Change in the condition will cause a struggle for existence. The bird is trying to find food and the beetle is trying to hide. Okay, they are struggling. It's called struggle for existence. In the struggle for existence, which one will survive? The one with the orange color survives. And because they are most adaptive, they are the fittest to survive. The fittest survives. And later you don't find any more green ones. And this become a new species of beetle. So that is an example to understand what we discussed in the previous slide. Okay. And this is the theory of Lamarck. Lamarck's theory actually came before Darwin's theory. This is called use and disuse. Use and disuse theory. Right? He said that if animals use an organ excessively, that develop better. And if animals don't use an organ, it won't develop. Okay. He took the example of giraffe. Lamarck said that giraffe was trying to get food from tall trees. So it kept stretching the neck all the time to get the food. This constant effort led to the stretching of the neck, and the giraffe become progressively taller and longer with longer neck. This is called use and disuse theory. Remember, it came before Darwin's theory. Okay, Lamarck was a French scientist, and he said that life forms evolved by use and disuse. And if an organ is used over and over, it develops. And if it's not used, it becomes vestigial, means it becomes smaller and dies and disappears from the body. Okay, and in this example, you can see this, right? What's the example? The giraffe was trying to get food constantly from the trees, and so it was stretching and trying to get to the food, and this is what caused giraffe to have longer neck. But scientists disproved it, right? Like in one of the experiments, a scientist cut the tail of the rat for 20 generations. 20 generations, he kept cutting the tail of the rats. But there was no change. Every time a new rat was born, even after 20th generation, it had a tail. Okay? It was born with a tail. So this was disproved. In India, we know that Indian women pierce their earlobes for thousands of years. But every time a baby girl is born, she doesn't have a hole on the ear pinna. Okay, on the earlobe, you don't find a hole. If Lamarck's theory was true, in India, we have been piercing the earlobe of girls even in some communities, men's ear pinnas, men's earlobe is pierced. In spite of repeated action, it doesn't happen in the offspring. It doesn't come. Baby girl is not born with a hole in the earlobe. So in this way, Lamarck's theory is disproved. Okay. This scientist is called Hugo de Vries. Hugo de Vries came up with the idea of mutation. I didn't use the term mutation until now because uh, Darwin was talking about variation. Okay. Hugo de Vries talked about mutation. And Hugo, Hugo de Vries was uh, experimenting with these plants. He found that suddenly new colors appear in these plant flowers of this plant. Okay, and this is called evening. This plant is called evening primrose. Right? He found out that suddenly new colors appeared in the plant, and he called this sudden change in the character as mutation. What is mutation? Mutation is a sudden change in the variation, right? Uh, and it's a mutation. He believed that De Vries believed that it's a mutation that causes variation and evolution, right? And this uh, the Hugo De Vries' idea was that it is sudden change. Okay, it's a sudden change, and this sudden change will cause a big change in the species. But Darwin said that it's a gradual change in the genes. And this sudden change in the genes is called mutation. And his idea is known as saltation. Okay, what's the meaning of saltaire? Saltaire means to dance. Okay, that's the meaning of saltaire. The saltation came from this word. The sudden changes in the genes will cause a single large mutation, and this is what causes evolution. So De Vries slightly modified the idea of Darwin, and he called it saltation, and which is based on mutation. What's mutation? Change in the genes. And he believed that it's a mutation that causes evolution, not small variations like Darwin said. Okay, that's the difference between Darwin and De Vries. Darwin didn't know about mutation, but De Vries found out a phenomenon called mutation, and he modified that theory of evolution, and he called it saltation. Single step large mutation is called saltation. All right. This is called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Okay. What is Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium? To understand the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, let's take a population. Let's say this is a population of each circle represent a species. It's a population which is isolated and it lives in a habitat. Let's say all these are animals living on an island. On an island, okay, there's a group of same species which lives on this island, right? Hardy and Weinberg, two scientists, they said that frequency of alleles of these species, no, it's isolated population. It's an isolated population. In this isolated population, the frequency of alleles remain in equilibrium. It means a balance. Means a total number of, there's a balance between the total number of alleles in the species of this population, which is isolated. This equilibrium is called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium, or we can simply call it genetic equilibrium. Okay, what's genetic equilibrium? It's Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium. What does it say? Frequency of alleles in these isolated populations remain in a balance. Equilibrium means in a balance. Okay, and they said that The dominant allele, hope you remember this. Dominant allele is P. Recessive allele is, what's a recessive allele? That's a recessive allele is Q. Okay, P represents the dominant allele, Q represents the recessive allele. And they said that the frequency of dominant and recessive allele in this population is equal to 1 because it's in an equilibrium, in a balance. 1 is a frequency of alleles, not the number, frequency. Okay, I'll show you how to find the frequency. If you expand this, it goes this way: p squared plus 2p cubed plus q squared is equal to 1. What p square represents? We study the example of tall and short plants. P square means capital T, capital T. 2 dominant alleles. 2pq means big T, small t. Q square means 2 small t. So this is heterozygous. This is homozygous recessive. Why is it 2? In every population, the number of heterozygous will be double. Okay? So the balance between the dominant and recessive alleles, frequency of the alleles is equal to 1. This is called Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. Okay? Okay, this is an expansion of, it's a binomial expansion of this one. You have to learn these two, but I'll give you an example so that it makes sense. Okay. Okay, look at that. This is just a cartoon to understand it. There are 2 alleles, P and Q. Frequency of alleles is equal to 1. If you expand it, it becomes P squared plus 2PQ plus Q squared is equal to 1. What is P squared? Frequency of homozygous dominant. Big T, big T. Capital T, capital T. What is heterozygous? Capital T, small t. This is, let's say, big T, or this is 2 small t's. Okay, let's suppose that these are alleles in a population. In this population, you can see 2 alleles, capital R and small r. So that's known as a gene pool. What is gene pool? All the alleles present in a population is called the gene pool. Like swimming pool, swimming pool is all the water in one particular area. Similarly, in one population, all the alleles are known as the gene pool. In this gene pool, you can see 2 alleles. What's the dominant allele? The dominant allele is capital R. That means that's a P. What's the recessive allele? Recessive allele is the small r, which is Q. Q is the small r. Okay, so in this population, P plus Q is equal to 1. That means R, big R plus small r is equal to 1. Okay, let's count the number of R's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so there are 20 of them. R is equal to, in 20 individual, 20 animals have capital R, for example. And the other one, 1,
It's 10, sir.
10. Okay, small r is equal to 10. So how do you find, what's the total number here? It's 30. Okay, 30 is a total number. And if you want to find out the frequency of R, what's the frequency of R is equal to 20 over 30. Okay, 20 divided by 30 is equal to 0.6. This is the frequency of capital R. What's the frequency of small r? 10 over 30. 10 divided by 30 is equal to 0.0. Okay, 33. That's 0.3. All right. And if you add other, it's like 0.666 and 0.333, right? So if you add P and Q, 0. Here you won't get exactly 1. If you add all the decimals, you do get it. 0.6 plus 0.3 is equal to actually 0.9. If you add all the repeated 6s and 3s, it become 1. So this is an example to show that in this population, there's balance between the alleles. Okay, this is called Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium. Okay, one more thing. Suppose look at the expanded form. Let's try that also. P square plus 2pq plus q square. So what is p squared here? This, which is a p, that's a p. P is equal to 0.6, q is equal to 0.3, right? So what is p squared? P squared is 0, 0.6 times 0.6. Okay, that's a p squared. And that will be 0.6 times 0.6 is equal to 0.36. Okay, what is it? P squared. What is 2pq? 2pq is equal to 2 times 0.6 times 0.3. 0.2 times 0.6 times 0.3. 2 times 0.6 times 0.3. That's again 0.36. So what is q squared? Q squared is equal to 0.3 times 0.3. 0.3 times 0.3 gives you 0.09. So that's q squared. This is 2pq. So let's add them together. 0.36 plus 0.36 plus 0.09. Okay. It should give you like 1. It's almost 0.81, which is, when you round it up, it's equal to 1. So this is the application of the example we studied, the equilibrium. There's an equilibrium between genes in a population. Usually they don't ask you the sums related to it. Okay, you just have to learn the equilibrium equation. And this equilibrium is affected by different factors. Different factors affect this equilibrium. The one is mutation. What's a mutation? Sudden change in the genes. During sexual reproduction, meiosis happens. That mixes the genes. Gene flow. What is gene flow? When animals migrate from one population to other. So here you can see from the brown population, they're migrating to the green population. This is gene flow. When animals move from one population to other, that's called gene flow. Another reason is genetic drift. Genetic drift means any chance event that causes change in the alleles. For example, this is the original population. Okay, chance event means here they're showing like stepping on the insect. It could be diseases, or they are eaten by predators by chance. If this happens and if allele frequency changes, the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium changes, genetic equilibrium changes. And this was P plus Q is equal to 1. But here, you don't find the equilibrium. Okay, natural selection. Imagine a predator keeps eating one particular animal from the population. The earlier population had P plus Q is equal to 1, but this one doesn't have. The allele frequency has changed. Even here, The allele frequency changes when animals move to another population. During sexual reproduction, alleles are mixed up. New combinations appear. Mutations, new alleles come up. So these are the different factors which affect genetic equilibrium or Hardy-Weinberg's equilibrium. This is called migration. Migration causes. What exactly is migration? Here we call it gene flow, right? Migration is actually gene flow, right? Imagine this is the original population. It's the original population of butterflies. And some of them migrated to a new habitat. You can see a white and a dark brown, orange, three different butterflies. And the brown and the orange one moved to another habitat and created a new population. This new population will only have two colors. One is brown and second is orange. But the original has three of them. So it's a new population with a new allele frequency. And these three butterflies are known as founders of the new population. The alleles in the founders will be visible in the new population. What are the alleles? Alleles for brown, alleles for the orange color. Those will be visible in the new population. So this effect is called founder effect. What's a founder effect? The founders, the alleles of the founders of a population. Who are the founders here? 1, 2, 3. After many years, their number will increase. Even if their number increases, you will not find a white one in the new population. And that effect is called founder effect. Okay, founder effect is caused by, is based on the alleles present in the founding population. Okay, these three are known as founders or the founding population. And the new population's color is based on the color of these founders. Okay, so this is called founder effect. Okay, founder effect. All right. And natural selection can cause three different kinds of selection. Natural selection could be in three different ways. Let's say it's the original population of mouse. These are the mouse with lighter fur color. And these are the mouse with dark fur color. Okay. In some of the selections, what happens? And this is the one with medium fur color. In some of the natural selections, the medium ones are selected. This is called stabilizing selection. Okay. Natural selection can lead to stabilization. So in this selection, heterozygous individuals are selected. And the second type is known as directional selection. In directional selection, either dark ones are selected or light ones are selected. Means dominant ones or recessive ones. But this is called disruptive selection. If it's disruptive selection, both dominant and recessive are selected, but heterozygous decreases. This one decreases. And these two increases. So these are the three kinds of selection. The details we don't have to learn. But remember, the natural selection can result in heterozygous individuals increase in number and over the homozygous dominant, which is light, and the dark. Okay? Whatever be the dominant. Maybe the dark is dominant or light is recessive. And if it's, let's say dark is dominant and this one is recessive. And if it's stabilizing, which one is selected? Which one increases? Heterozygous. And if it's directional, one of them, the two bigger will increase, or the two smaller will increase, one of them. But if it's disruptive, the heterozygous will decrease, the other two will increase. So these are three possible outcomes of natural selection. One is stabilization, Second is directional change, and the other one is disruption. Okay, disruptive selection, stabilizing selection, uh, and directional selection and disruptive selection. That's a diagram of your reader. The first one is, but they haven't written any description on it. That's first one is stabilizing selection. This peak shift in one direction. So this is called directional selection. Then this one, the third one is C is known as disruptive selection. Okay. So that's a brief account of evolution. Okay. The first cellular forms appear. These numbers you have to, dates you have to memorize. 2000 million years ago, first cellular life forms appeared on the earth, right? And non-cellular aggregate like giant macromolecules like RNA proteins, they got covered up in a membrane. This is called cellular aggregates. There's a membrane up here, and inside you find large macromolecules, RNA, proteins, etc. Okay, it's not a cell, but similar to the cell. And after that, uh, some of these cells received a molecule known as chlorophyll. So they become green, and they're similar to plant cells. These aggregate could produce oxygen by a process similar to photosynthesis. Okay. And 350 million years back ago, single cells started changing to multicellular forms. And it continued. 320 million years before, in the water, seaweeds and plants appeared. Seaweeds and plants. And these plants migrated to land plants, even animals which were evolved in the water moved to land. Some of the example like fish with strong fins in 350 million years ago started walking on land. Okay, they start living on places where there's less water and water. They kept moving. And in 1938, they found this fish. It's called coelacanth. Okay, coelacanth is called lobed fin fish. What does it mean? This this fish can walk with the fin on the mud. Okay, okay. They are ancestors of amphibians. I'll show you the picture on the next slide. And they become amphibians. They evolved into amphibians. These amphibians become reptiles. And after that, almost 200 million years, it was only reptiles on the earth. Okay. And some reptiles started swimming back in the water. And one fossil we got is called Ichthyosaurus. It's a reptile, a kind of dinosaur which lived in water. Okay, look at the pictures of this. So you have to learn the sequence of changes. This is called coelacanth. Coelacanth is called living fossil. Scientists found it in the rocks, ancient rocks. They saw the fossil, but they never saw the fish. But in 1938, in South Africa, fishermen caught this fish. What's special about this fish? Look at its fin. This fin is called lobed fin. With this fin, it can actually walk. Okay? And remember, this later become the leg of amphibians. See, even these two become the legs of the amphibian. It's called coelacanth. Okay? Coelacanth is a fish known as lobed fish. It's an ancestor of modern amphibians. And that's the Ichthyosaurus. It's not a fish, it's a reptile, right? The, it's not alive today. The previous one is alive. It's called living fossil, but this one is not alive. But we got its fossil from the rocks. See, this is it has reptilian features. You can see the bones of its forelimb modified for swimming. Its legs are modified for swimming. And And it continued, evolution continued. The largest reptile were the dinosaurs. And among them, the largest one was Tyrannosaurus rex. We saw it in Jurassic Park. And 65 million years ago, dinosaurs disappeared due to change in climate. Climate change caused them to disappear. And most of them turned into birds. And from those reptiles, some of the reptiles become the most primitive mammals, known as shrews. And they thought to have appeared, might have appeared in South America. Later, South America joined with the North America, and the fauna got mixed up. And some mammals started living in water, like whale. Okay, it was a land animal which started living in water. So this is a brief account of evolution which happened in the past. That's a Tyrannosaurus rex, the largest dinosaur ever lived. Okay, this is the origin and evolution of man. About 1.5 million years ago. Okay, from the primates, humans arose. But we don't have all the fossils to prove. Humans were very few, so we couldn't find every fossil of our ancestors. And some of them we will be discussing in this lesson. Look at this. This is one of the fossils we found. It's known as Dryopithecus. Dryopithecus had characteristics almost like apes. Its body was covered with hair or fur, and it is more like monkey, okay, apes. So it's called like an ape man, you can say, right? And the next one is called Ramapithecus. This organism is also known as a hominid because it's more like humans. It walked on two legs and it had human-like features. It's called Ramapithecus. Even from India, they got fossils of this human-like primates. They found it in Eastern Africa, right? Maybe 4 feet, but they walked upright. And this is another fossil we found. It's called Australopithecus or Australopithecines. Its fossil was found in East African grasslands. They use stone weapons, but mostly ate fruit. Okay, they ate fruits, and they are more like a human-like feature, first human-like beings. Okay? But the real human-like was Homo erectus. This is like closer to humans. It's a true hominid, and its brain capacity was 650 cubic centimeter to 800 cubic centimeter. Even they were vegetarians. They did not eat meat. And that's Homo sapiens. It's called Neanderthals. Even they become extinct, and scientists assume that they got mixed up with human Homo sapiens sapiens, and they Homo erectus. After erectus, they found out the fossils of Neanderthals, and that's a Neanderthal and the modern humans, in comparison. And it has a brain size of 1400 cubic centimeter. Who Neanderthals had a bigger brain, the biggest brain among the ancestors, and lived in East and Central Asia, maybe 100,000 to 40,000 years back. 100,000 to 40,000 years back, they lived. And after this, modern humans were evolved 75,000 to 10,000 years ago. And they assume that modern humans came up after the Ice Age, the last Ice Age. And even from India, like Madhya Pradesh, Raisin district of Madhya Pradesh, they found fossils of Homo sapiens. Okay. And agriculture, we started practicing agriculture 10,000 years back. And the civilization started, human settlements were started. Okay. So these are some examples of our ancestors which lived in the past. Okay. So we have completed this